If we say that a place is humid, what do we mean by that? What's humidity? Tom?
I think it's when a place is wet and warm.
Good one.
Good one, Tom.
Yeah, good one. You're so smart.
Wish I was as smart as you, Tom.
Bullying in the classroom. Just because it's not always obvious doesn't mean it's not there. Some of the most insidious forms of bullying behaviour, including verbal abuse, sarcasm and mimicry, occur in the classroom and frequently in front of the teacher. Left uncorrected, such behaviour can have a damaging impact on a student's self-esteem, making it difficult for effective learning to take place. This program is about managing bullying behaviour in the classroom. We'll look at what constitutes bullying, the put-down and its impact, managing put-downs, modelling behaviour for students, and consequences for bullying behaviour. From punch-ups to harsh words, negative peer interactions are unpleasant classroom realities. But when do these acts of deliberate harm or unkindness become bullying? And when is it the teacher's responsibility to step in?
Bullying has to have several characteristics. It's not just a behaviour which is unwanted, unjustified and motivated by the desire to inflict distress. It also has to be repeated and there has to be a power imbalance.
Outside the classroom, a power imbalance can exist between older and younger students, or where there is a difference in social power. In the classroom, the dynamic is shifted.
In some cases that power imbalance comes from the numbers of people doing it versus the single person who's receiving it. In some cases the power imbalance comes because the person who's leading the bullying is in fact more socially powerful or more socially manipulative than the victim.
Classroom bullying patterns may include physical aggression, such as punching, pinching or hair pulling, repeated verbal aggression in the form of put-downs and abuse, and deliberate and repeated social exclusion.
Everyone's entitled to decide who they want to be friends with, who they want to socialise with. And occasionally a group or an individual will simply decide that person isn't someone I wish to socialise with anymore or have a friendship with anymore. And that's not an act of bullying. However, if that then becomes a form of harassment whereby the individual who's been rejected is continually told, we don't like you, is continually on the receiving end of gestures or behaviours along those lines, then it becomes bullying.
Students can also bully by the use of email, instant messages and text messages, sending negative and threatening messages to targeted students. These technologies offer a simple way of bullying which is immediate and glamorous. The perpetrators don't see the impact of their actions on others. But bullying is also sometimes hidden in the everyday culture of the way students relate to each other.
The put-down culture that's been, I guess, promulgated by quite a few media shows, I think, things like The Simpsons or what have you, I think have had a profound effect on the way children relate to each other, and emotionally I think underestimate the underlying damage that's being done in terms of the way people feel when they're spoken to like that. The Y generation's the whatever generation, and the I didn't mean to hurt them generation, I think. And in terms of bullying, the throwaway line has become part of the culture, and I think incredible damage is being done with it.
No matter what form it takes, classroom bullying has a major impact on the targeted students, one that can often continue into adult life. This is true also for the students who bully.
I have actually had many cases of bullying situations and where adults have called. And so for these adults, the anxiety and depression and really low self-esteem has affected them all through their life, and it affects them in employment, it affects how they relate to other people, it affects their chances with just being who they should be out there in the world. So it does have long-term serious implications, not only for their personality but also for their health.
Bullying is a pattern of repeated attacks, either physical, verbal, social, or psychological, on a specific student. There is also an imbalance of power. For example, the number of students, size, age, or social power. Common classroom bullying techniques include verbal attacks and put-downs, as well as attacks via email and mobile messaging devices. Bullying has a negative impact on a person's self-esteem and can lead to long-term health problems. We live in a put-down culture. At school, at home and in the media, personal attacks, exclusion or put-downs are normalised and frequently presented as humour.
I have a really firm belief that the popular culture of animated cartoons has something to answer for in terms of the language that young people use to each other, that they underestimate the impact it has. I think that's a form of bullying that we really have to work hard on.
Put-downs are negative words or actions that show disrespect to others. The people who use them aim to reduce the self-image and social reputation of another. Verbal put-downs can be used directly to another person's face or indirectly, talking to a third person about someone else. But the majority of put-downs are non-verbal. Common put-downs include unjustified and instant dismissal or rejection, body language such as eye-rolling, smirking, shrugging the shoulders and raising the eyebrows, mimicking or mockery, tone of voice such as sarcasm or insincerity, stereotyping and hate language.
The kinds of bullying that are most damaging to the person on the receiving end are the ones that schools tend to take less seriously. And yeah, it's still unpleasant to be physically bullied. It's still unpleasant to have your property damaged. But again, there's often a sense of justice that follows from that on the grounds that you can demonstrate it, and on the grounds that there is something broken or something bruised where you can say, see, I'm vindicated.
Put-downs hurt most when used in front of others, used by friends, used repeatedly to harass, or used to focus attention on a particular insecurity.
The most insidious and damaging form of bullying, again, is the constant name-calling or nasty teasing or social exclusion, which is always repeated, because it undermines your sense of self, and it doesn't give a young person the opportunity to develop their own identity.
As we heard earlier, some put-down behaviour is so entrenched in youth culture, students may not even realise they are doing it.
So I think it's important to sit down with the kids, even if it's in small groups and even if it's one-on-one, and have a conversation with them, because in many incidents I've seen students who have been participating in bullying behaviour and they don't actually understand what they're doing.
Put-downs are negative comments or actions that show disrespect to others. Put-downs are often normalised through the media and presented as humour. The impact of a put-down will change, depending on its source and circumstance. Students often don't see repeated put-downs as bullying behaviour and underestimate the hurt they cause.
Why wouldn't I?
Cut it out, girls. I'll see you after class, Tash.
As if you'd be invited anyway. Loser.
You don't allow students to hurt each other physically, and you shouldn't allow them to do so with words either. Strategies for preventing put-downs and verbal taunts in the classroom include making a no put-down rule in which put-downs are clearly defined, creating a class contract which rewards students for a lack of put-downs, or establishing a series of non-negotiables, such as no name-calling, work in anyone's group, no teasing. Teachers must never ignore put-downs and verbal taunts in class. To do so gives their tacit approval.
The important thing, of course, is never to condone it, seemingly, by smiling when they see it. In many cases of bullying, it is best to make a note of it and then see the people involved later. Sometimes it's extremely embarrassing for the victim if you intervene. Say somebody's being insulted and you go along and say, you shouldn't be talking to him like that, that's not right, stop bullying him. Now the victim will feel almost humiliated by the attention that's being paid to the situation. It's better not to do that.
To avoid embarrassing the targeted student, teachers can use non-verbal actions, such as clicking fingers or raising eyebrows, to silence the person making the put-down.
It is also not appropriate to make it a high focus in the classroom and tell a student off within the class context, but rather to follow that up privately. Because if it's very public, in fact, it puts a lot of pressure on the student who's been mistreated, as well as on the student or students who've been doing the mistreating.
But perhaps a teacher's best chance at preventing classroom put-downs and bullying is through establishing strong rapport with the students.
The teacher, I think, is the most critical person in the room in terms of a harmonious, positive, affirming space for the student to be in at any given time. And I think to know your students, to be able to read the student and understand how they're going on any given day in terms of their happiness or their sense of self or their demeanour is really vital. So I'd encourage teachers to know their kids.
Strong relationships with students help to prevent bullying and contribute to more effective learning, thus saving the teacher time.
I think most teachers out there have excellent strategies to deal with incidents, but the thing that we have to remember is it's a hugely crowded curriculum, and you're timetabled from 1 minute to the next, and it's finding that time, that minute. Something's happened out in the yard, the bell's gone, you've got a class to get to, you need to deal with an incident, and it's okay for people like us to sit here and calmly say, well, you should be doing this, and, dealing with it in the same day and speaking to them calmly, etc. And it's a very difficult thing to do, but you have to consider the situation you're putting the students in. And I think when teachers build relationships up with their students, which is the key for me, they will know the right time to approach people, and I would do it in privacy.
Strategies for preventing put-downs in the classroom include a no put-downs rule, class contracts, and a series of non-negotiables. Teachers should never ignore put-downs, should use non-verbal actions, and establish a strong rapport with their students.
Suddenly I realised last night the government must have arrested Mum before they blew up our house. Aaron, would you read for us next, please? That'd be right, not concentrating again.
Oh, sorry, miss.
No, don't apologise, Aaron. It's me who should be apologising to you for disturbing your beauty sleep. Very sorry.
Pretty boy.
Next to immediate family members and guardians, teachers represent one of the most regular points of adult contact for students. For this reason, teacher behaviour serves as a model for student behaviour. And when a teacher uses sarcasm to criticise a student, the teacher sets an example for the rest of the class to follow.
I think the way teachers speak to the students is incredibly important, that you always speak to them in a respectful way, you treat them as individuals and not as part of a big group, that you affirm them consistently. They need the practice of affirming, you know, that's really good, or, you know, you've done this well, but perhaps you need to improve in this area. As I said, they're no fools, they need reality, they know when they're not doing it well, but they don't need to be told they're hopeless either, or that they're a failure. They need to be told, you can do this to improve there. And if they're consistently told that they're no good at something, that's another form of bullying. Teachers are bullies too.
Teaching staff might collaborate to create a staff code of conduct.
Teachers who make negative comments, for example, about a student's energy levels and always imply, because the student might be a bit slow packing up or completing work, that they're really lazy or always low on energy. And it's a subtle thing, but the behaviour of the teacher is modelling the notion of it's okay to make negative comments repeatedly about somebody's behaviour which annoys you in a way which distresses them.
Teachers should also be careful when casting judgments on students.
Darcy really should learn to stand up for herself a bit more. Oh, she's a bit of a weakling.
As if you'd be invited anyway. You're a loser.
What do? You always just study and do
Come on,
schoolwork.
Darcy, say something.
You're so boring. No one wants to hang around you.
She's got a point. Darcy is boring. No wonder she's got no friends. I'm not surprised they'd pick on her.
One of the difficulties that schools have is that some teachers truly believe that there are some students who like to be victims and who are justifiably bullied. And we just have to get rid of this completely erroneous conclusion, because there are no students who like to be bullied. There are just students who have been mistreated and continue to be mistreated. And there are no students who ask to be bullied or who are bullied with justification, because the whole nature of bullying is that it's unjustified. It's never acceptable for anybody to bully or mistreat another because they find someone else's behaviour annoying or unsatisfying.
Teachers can be effective models for students by respectfully disagreeing, praising kindness and inclusive behaviour, maintaining a respectful relationship with students, avoiding favouritism and sarcasm, remaining calm and patient, acting quickly to stamp out any bullying behaviour.
Teachers are working in a very stressful and demanding environment. And I think in those circumstances we can all default to behaviour that is perhaps less than our best, I should say. So I think teachers, like all of us, are prey to that. So certainly I think teachers have to also own, though, that the behaviour they exhibit to the classroom and to students in an everyday life of school, they're modelling behaviour. They're showing how I go about treating people, responding to conflict, working with my colleagues. Teachers are modelling the whole time. Now, if what they're modelling is less than exemplary behaviour and it's not respectful of people, it's not cooperative, it doesn't show that they take time to listen, or indeed can even be behaviour that is uses sarcasm or put-downs, that kind of behaviour is that's modelling to young people.
Teachers are role models for student behaviour. They should avoid bullying behaviours such as name-calling, ridicule and sarcasm, and avoid labelling students. Teachers should aim always to provide positive feedback, to maintain respect and respond swiftly to put-downs or bullying behaviour. A bullying problem will worsen if teachers fail to act quickly, with the impact felt by all class members, not just the targeted few.
At a learning level and an education level, if you've got a classroom full of young people who are feeling like that they belong, they're feeling good about themselves, they're feeling competent and able, they're able to take risks in their learning, which is always essential to move forward and learn more, that if you've got that environment with young people who are feeling safe to do all that, then surely learning is going to occur more effectively and for everybody. In a classroom where there are young people feeling excluded, not feeling happy about themselves, not willing to take that risk to step out, the same kind of learning isn't going to happen, is it? So that no doubt has a huge impact on the environment, for the learning environment for young people.
An entrenched bullying problem affects everybody, and teachers should be aware of the appropriate measures to take.
The most common way for schools to deal with bullying, it's more or less the traditional way, is to use what might be called rules and consequences approach. Now, this involves devising certain rules that apply to bullying behaviour, and it can be done fairly easily when the behaviour is extreme, as in the case of physical assaults and the case of racial abuse. And various consequences can be imposed. Usually these are consequences which involve various kinds of punishment or penalties, and they could involve things like detention, removing privileges from children that they have, perhaps bringing in parents, the parents of the bully, and having serious talks with them, and in extreme cases this can involve suspensions.
The rules and consequences approach to serious bullying behaviour is popular because it sends a clear message that the behaviour is neither accepted nor tolerated. However, the use of punishment for bullying can be counterproductive, in that it can lead to retaliation against the targeted student. It is also difficult to apply punishment in a situation where the details are unclear. Non-punitive approaches to bullying behaviour focus less on the crime and the punishment, and more on the needs and safety of the students involved.
The idea is to create empathy, not invite social retaliation, and to change the approach to one of let's all work together to try and improve the situation for the person who's having a hard time, rather than let's identify those who are misbehaving and punish them.
Examples of non-punitive approaches include the no-blame approach, in which a teacher talks with a group of students, including those involved in the bullying and those who are not, about ways to improve the situation for the targeted student. The method of shared concern, where teachers talk individually to those involved in bullying another student about the conflict and ways to resolve it.
And suspension. So we're actually talking about types of interventions where we can actually change the behaviour of the person doing the bullying and modify their behaviour so they actually understand what they're doing, the impacts they're having on the other students, and to try and get them to change their behaviour without always punishing them.
Some teachers may find it useful to have a repertoire of approaches available to them. In some circumstances, a simple intervention works best, while non-punitive or punitive methods will work better for others. Bullying behaviour has a negative impact on all students' ability to learn. The rules and consequences approach to correcting bullying behaviour sends a firm message that bullying will not be tolerated. Non-punitive measures avoid directly allocating blame, nurture empathy, and aim to resolve conflict through discussion and reflection. Classroom bullying affects everybody. Classroom bullying can be physical, but frequently includes verbal abuse, put-downs, and other forms of ridicule. Teachers need to eradicate classroom bullying quickly and avoid modelling bullying behaviours for their students.
If a student isn't socially happy or emotionally grounded, they're not going to learn. And that if you have a child who's being bullied, they're not going to learn. There'll be a void in that. There'll be a patch of non-learning that occurs. And that to have a group operating or a cohort of students in a particular school operating effectively as positive social beings and positive emotional beings is a baseline need to have effective learning.